everyone. Welcome. Nice to see you all. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bicentennial, and I'm the Outreach and Education Coordinator here at the Chapman. And I'm grateful that you guys have come to yet another talk in our series, Conversations with the Past. So tonight we're going to hear from Patricia or Tisha Dolton. Tisha was born and raised in Washington County. She studied voice performance at Adirondack Community College, now SUNY, before transferring to SUNY New Paltz and obtaining her BA in history. In the summer of 1998, she taught herself hand embroidery while working as a seasonal interpretive ranger at Saratoga National Historic Park. She has worked as a site interpreter at multiple historic sites and museums. And after nearly 9 years as a bookseller, she returned to college and received her MS in Information Science from the University at Albany. She is currently public historian and librarian at the Folk Life Center at Crandall Public Library, maybe she serves as trustee of the Warren County Historical Society and is a member of Warren New York 250 with Mission, and is co-founder and chair of the Celebrating Suffrage in Greater Glens Falls Committee, which creates and promotes suffrage and women history events in the region. So now I'm going to turn it over to you for commemorative community quilts then and now.
Just decide if you decide that you're going to like start a committee, don't name it what I mean by that. It's way too long. So now we're going to talk about commemorative community quilts, and I know at least one person in here said they worked on the Glens Falls Bicentennial quilt. So I don't profess to be an expert in this topic. I just started researching it, but mainly I wanted to get research going so that we could kind of inspire either people who did it in the past or also a new generation of people to do it going forward. Look at kind of what has been done over the last, we're going to go back to the centennial, so quite a while. Over the years, see what is, and see maybe like a few books that are happening now, and what folks might be interested in creating, instead of just making another. The one we have here is beautiful, so why would you make it?
Yes.
So there were some quilts actually made for the Centennial in 1876. There was the Centennial International Exhibition in Philadelphia. This particular quilt was actually recently rediscovered, if you will. It was purchased by a lady in Connecticut in 1997, I believe. I don't know. And around 2015, she had kids and life got in the way, so she didn't really do anything with the quilt. And she kind of took it out of storage in 2010. And 2015, she got on Facebook and shared it to the group and was like, does anybody know anything about this quilt? Two ladies, two quilt historians and teachers got a hold of it. It was like, wait a minute. So there is actually this whole 1876 quilt project going on where they're actually teaching people how to make the quilt. And it was a big thing in the Houston Quilt Show in 2018. There was a big exhibit just on it. And people have just been continually making them, much like the Jane Stickle quilt or in Bennington's and Hoppinstone's box as well. So it's just become like its own kind of thing. But here is an image of the original antique quilt. So it's 90 inches square. It has everything with the kitchen sink, Y seams, Z seams, ball shapes, lots of curves. I follow a quilter who was bemoaning curves, and everybody told her just to do it. And now she's like, why was I so scared of curves? But here they are. It's got pretty much everything in there, and it's 150 different types of different patterns. So there's lots of different things. Yeah. They believe it was one individual person, but they only have the initials EMC. EMC or as in one. They They think they've narrowed it down because there's only one person in if it stayed in Connecticut, one person in the area who actually went to the exhibition who has those initials, so they're thinking it's probably that person, but they don't know for sure. If any of you know me, you know that I really love red work, hence the pieces that are there. This is a coverlet from images from the 1893 World's Fair. So in Chicago, they sold these little squares with the, I think they were transfers because of the size of them as opposed to penny squares. And then someone used borders that already existed and then put transfers in the middle and then created this large quilt with 21-inch square blocks. And there are various different buildings that were part of World's Fair. I actually painted buildings. So power to them. Words and buildings, not a fan. This one is from the 1901 Pan American Exposition. So these were actually pre-stamped penny squares. So you actually got the square, you didn't have to worry about transferring anything on there. They're all 9 inches square. This particular one has 47 different designs. There are some duplicates. They've identified 59 individual squares. Also include the New York State Building, which is not on here. There was a glass factory, a mill, Theodore and Mrs. Roosevelt. This one has Mr. and Mrs. McKinley on it. McKinley was assassinated while attending this expedition. So there's actually 2 squares that were sold. One pre-assassination, one post-assassination. Post-assassination said a murdered president on it. This one just has his name on it. There were also penny squares sold in the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis, Missouri. I think you're familiar with maybe in St. Louis. The movie. I love that. I can sing it all day. Now we're getting to the Bicentennial. This particular one was a cross-stitch very equal quilt by the Lucilla company. So there were quilt companies actually selling specific things, specific patterns, specific designs. This particular one's on sale in the Hudson Valley and on an Etsy listing. But it's 82 inches by just over 63 inches. And it's a whole block quilt and then cross stitch at the top. This one I really like is the the center piece. So this is Canal in Ohio. 33 different people worked on the quilt, entirely done by hand. The center block is the 20 by 40 inch of a canal and the mules and the canal driver pulling the canal. And then there are 39 9-inch by 12-inch blocks. Wow. And it's like, it's the typical kind of scenes, you know, there's lots of churches, schools, businesses. Yes. This one is Hopewell, New Jersey. So this one's 9 foot by 8 feet. Oh, this is a big one. I was like, is that a typo? This is a big one. So there are 42 squares designed, each woman designing each individual piece. They're arranged in a 7 by 6 grid. And again, historical events, celebrations, businesses, and institutions. The squares were completed in January 1976, and it was quoted by the end of May. This one's interesting. So this was the Lindsay Quilters Guild. They actually chose the colors to represent the Nebraska landscape. And there's actual scenes depicted inside each one of these. And so those are actually imagery of Nebraska history, commerce, and agriculture. So this one's 100 inches by 98, so it's almost perfectly square. But this is unusual because you typically see a lot of those either appliqued or embroidered individual blocks that are then sewn together. But this group, they worked on it, the whole thing together. Yeah, really neat. This one is Mountain View, California. This one's unusual because a lot of the bicentennial quilts are, Declaration of Independence. They're, Betsy Ross sewing the flag, or they're things about, your local history. These have they're the Tulsa, that's Tulsa. 1863, I'm not sure what's right, but that's Tulsa. Yeah, and they have, general, they were being lynched. They have, one of them is the Japanese internment camps. So they do have things like the writing of the Battle of the Bill of Rights. But they wanted to make sure that other things were represented, the good, the bad, the ugly, and history, not just getting on the highlights. I put this one in here for two reasons. One, this is the first mention of bicentennial quilt I saw in the full star when I was doing my research. So this has popped up. And it was actually a teacher who was originally from Schuylerville, Ellen Hewitt Spellman, who was teaching in Virginia, and she started a book project, a bicentennial book project with her students, and they won an award. So each of the 28 students designed and made one of the 12 by 15-inch rectangles surrounding a large American eagle. And recognition of this project was given in January issues of the Instructor, the National Geographic School Bulletin, and appeared in Future McCall's magazine. This is the Ulster County quilt. That's down in Ulster County Community College in Stonebridge, New York. Again, that's another one of kind of typical quilts that we see. Yep, so Georgia Truth's right there. We got Huguenot Street for quilts there as well. Again, more churches and schools. That's Henry Hudson for the Henry Hudson ships. This is another school project. Southwest Falls Senior High School students and community residents collaborating on the bicentennial quilt. This one's in Corinth. There's two in Corinth that I'll show you. This one was done by Silver Threads, so they were a senior embroidery group. So this is entirely embroidered. You can see that there's two different Indian heads down here. There's three more up there that are different ones. We got a couple of ladies with parasols. We have the bicentennial symbol, and then we're on like represented in a square. These two guys are pilgrims that are holding rifles or muskets. This one has 1976 on it, and then that one just has some stars. So they did, vary at some designs. None of these appear to be local inspired, so it's probably something that was available in the magazine that they got in the pictures. And then sometimes they just added things like this jug has a 1776 on it. That one over there that you see. And this is supposedly from all the articles that I've been reading, it's supposed to be at the speed of no, I haven't. The poor ladies from Argyle. It's totally washed out. There's a whole article about these poor ladies that they basically look like they're holding up a white cover. Like you see their face. So I really particularly like to see their archival. They had a whole big celebration for their quilt as well. Like that was like a whole article. It's such a wonderful picture. I don't think it's so. Sometimes they would say, like back in, oh my goodness, I think is. It's Granville. They keep going back and forth about where they're gonna put it. And a guy volunteers, like buys all the lumber, he's gonna build it, they're gonna put it there. And then at the same time, they're redoing the slate mural, they're restoring the slate mural. So they're like, we wanna put them next to each other, so everybody can see them all at once. And so they're like constantly like having the quilt next to the slate mural. And then finally it's supposed to like live in this case in the town hall. But I've never been to the Greenville town halls. One of these days I'm gonna get around and ask everybody. So here's the Hebrew Bicentennial quilt. They have a big celebration as well. Al Getting performed. They had a big like picnic and everything. So there are lots of celebrations around these things. A bunch of times you'll see like a list of celebrations and they'll say Bicentennial quilt was on display and they'll list like that. Before we get to Warrensburg real quick, I did mention Granville. I don't have a pass this around. I forgot to put it on the slide. The Granville quilt. And what's interesting about the Granville quilt is that Granville, Massachusetts in 1981 contacted all of the 30 Granvilles across the country to see if they had done bicentennial quilts and if they wanted to participate in the exhibit. And the Granville quilt went to that quilt exhibit and they actually sent people. So it's like them and Granville, Ohio both sent delegations to actually go to the quilt exhibit and see all the quilts that were on display. But a bunch of books did were shown at that, so that was kind of fun. There were 30 Granvilles. So here we have the Warrensburg quilt. The Warrensburg quilt is on exhibit at the Museum of Warrensburg. I've seen it. It was one of the reasons why I was like, oh, I should do that. So more than 50 women participated in local scenes in history, like Church of the Holy Cross, Emerson Sawmill, Emerson Mansion. So this one has applique, embroidery, and a tool on it. It's quilted. It's got little hearts in each of the fingers, and there's like a little sunburst. This one's got a map of the village up in the orange. Another interesting thing in the research for this quilt was the Warrensburg Bicentennial quilt was presented by Natalie Men's House and Eunice Weekly. The women presented the quilt to Potter, who was presenting it to the Warrensburg Museum of History, local history for safekeeping. During the quilt presentation, a paper was presented on which 6 children promised to guard the bicentennial quilt for the nation's tricentennial. Signers were Jay and Jamie Potter, Buddy and Carla Flusendorf, Beth Lawrence, and Leah Spinell. Well, if they're signing, chances are they're probably like 8, 10 years old. They're expecting to live to be like 100, 810 years old. I thought that was really funny. I was like, you go. I hope you do make it to them. So now we're here at Glens Falls. And apparently the senior center did a quilt, a red, white, and blue quilt with alternating 1776 and 1976 blocks. There were 64 of them. These ladies are laying out and trying to decide what design they're going to go with. Not sure what that quilt is. I asked Becca, she's going to ask Marie. She's also going to ask about this one, this big cross stamp one. So there were 13 classes. They each showed one of the 13 colonies created up, centered around that colony. They used colored fabric marking crayons on white fabric. And then the big blank squares, those were alternating red and blue solid squares. And then you can kind of see the New York State line and kind of sticking on the side of there. So this is a fifth grader, Pam Savage, helping Lori Chamber. So this is fifth grader, third grader, this one. Attach a quilt patch to the bulletin board, so they're getting ready to set everything up. Then, this is Norma Town and this is Marina Wallace. We'll be fabricating patches and sewing it to the Bicentennial.
And know the location of this.
Yes, we know the location of this one, because trust me, it has been on display multiple times. There's been lots of articles written about this particular quilt. So this one here, there's a CoStar article on November 20th of 1975. That's when the top was completed. And then, starting in January of 1976, they had a series of public quilting bees. So they, I don't know, more power to you, but I don't want people staring at me when I'm working. But, you know, if people can do that, that's great. But they were at the bank, they were at the library, they were at one of the Contents or Insurance building, as well as the Glen Falls Action Committee and Senior Citizen Center. To get this lovely piece quilt. And please rotate it. Yeah, it's open. It's much nicer in person than on this. So in 2009, I was for 17 years. I was the historian for the town of Greenwich. So I belonged to Athens on and off for quite a while. So it's the Association for Public Historians of New York State. And in 2009, they decided they wanted to commemorate their 10th anniversary. So they contacted all the municipal historians to see if they wanted to create something for this book project. So right here, what you're seeing, I haven't seen all of them all put together because every time I go, it's like, whenever there's a conference when it's coming out of hiding, I'm never able to go to those. So this is, they're all kind of packed in together. This is one of the initial showings. And I did this one. Building. You don't like buildings. No, I don't like buildings. So I'll tell you why I did that one. So the one, because I was town of Greenwich historian, so it's the outline of the town of Greenwich, and then it says we have any at Chester. There's children, and it says childhood homes of. I don't like buildings. But because there was no village of Greenwich historian at the time, I wanted it to still be included. So I took it upon myself to do it since I was on the Bicentennial committee anyway. And that was our logo for Bicentennial, the village in 2009. So it was right, we had just done it. It was right at the same time they were doing this book. So I was like, I'll just embroider that. A kid from trying to find her name. From Greenwich Elementary, made the design and we turned it into also solution. So Queensberry, that's applique block. I believe Joan always did that. And it's a very combination. There's a lot of town and village and county seals. Some of them were machine embroideries, some of them were quite thick, some of them were just patches. This was a lot of mail top historians. We're doing no quilters. Huron, they actually adopted that as their town seal after the town historian they designed that. So that was kind of the this one, my mom helped me with. Wow. So during the New York State Summer Centennial in 2017, I think we go out there in 2015, 16. We took that. So we had gone to Rochester. We've done this kind of. My dad's from Central New York, so we lived in Central New York. We're looking at areas of dead family members and And I was like, well, if I'm going, I might as well see some suffrage stuff while I'm out there. So we saw a couple of things I hadn't seen before. And we went to the Anthony House, because I had actually never taken a tour of it before. And they had kits. So that's why a lot of the color, you see a lot of the fabric is the same. So they had these kits, and then they came with these ribbons. So that they could, because they wanted it to be a quilt that you could make as big or small as you needed it to be, so that it could travel as much as possible. And so the one up there in the corner is the one that my mom and I did. So I embroidered Lucy Allen. I was going for her maiden name for some reason. I don't know. Lucy Allen and Chloe Sisson, who were the founders of the first Quilting Club in our area in Easton. And so I put them on there because I figured I wasn't going to do Susan because everybody was going to do Susan. As you can see, there were quite a few Susans. I had thought about doing Mary because her younger sister Mary was active in the movement and she was actually born which one you would do that film. But I decided to go with Chloe and Lucy anyway because Mary and Susan actually taught them. It was put up at the New York State Museum. I was all excited because I was going to be able to go down, and we're putting it up, and then we went and walked in the middle of them putting these up. So luckily, lovely young lady works at the museum. I also follow on Instagram, and so I saw it on her Instagram feed. I'm like, I was like, can you take a picture of mine? So I was able to get a picture of mine on display. This is the kind of more field. You can actually go, the website is still active at Susan Anthony House. If anybody's interested, I can send it to them. She can shoot about that. I don't know if it's currently, if parts of it are currently traveling. There's like 300 solid blocks.
So that everybody made lots and then time together.
Yeah, so they can, so people can like request, so like, you know, people want to like look through the gallery and be like, oh, I want, you know, one's relating to Geneva or something like that, you know, then they can go through. Yeah, they did like limit people until what they could do. Obviously, you can see the actual blogs, and then some people. This is like a photo square. You know, the Gosling Gage. I was a page dead that a Haudenosaunee woman talking about the connection that they had with Native women. Yeah, that's kind of a fun way that, you know, you can do it and kind of have it be more far-flung than just, you know, thinking of your community as, you know, the 14,000 people who live in this. Yeah. There's more. Really? I know. And then you can do something like my Suffragist Tea Cozy project where they're each individual pieces. So they can be like pieces, but then you put them all together and they this particular project was grant funded by funds from LARAC and NISCA. 42 different suffragists were represented. Again, COVID hit and still keep them for a long time. But I designed all the patterns. So you can definitely do projects in which you are designing stuff yourself. You can use things that are already in existence. My mom, we brought a couple of things. Obviously, Ticos are here. I also did for the Champlain Canal 200th commemoration last year. We did our show. We had a bunch of different people, all different mediums, do different things. And this is the Red Work Splasher that I made. So I have a canal bow and wrote in the Champlain Canal. And then this guy down here, that's a typical like good design one. It's just cattails. Or then you can do something like this. This is I think I did this for the Bicentennial. But I just did the town outline of the town of Greenwich. And then I just added like little things into them. So you have a fish from the trout and lots of different stuff. There's and I made like a little fiddle for Fiddler's Elbow. This is such a weird road name. I'm like, why is it called that? And then there's like a little mill for Clark's Mills, and there's the waterfall. And I had to make sure I spelled the dump on right. You can see the laser here. I have to put Carol and then to the end of these house. There's baby Chester up space. And then when I was talking to my mom about it, well, actually, I wasn't. I went over to her house and she was like, so I don't know what you're doing for your quilt program, but I have these couple of ideas. And I was like, okay. That wasn't where I was expecting she was going with that, so I was kind of like taken aback. But she reminded me about this little project that they did. It was a Y2K quilt. Oh, they're 2-inch squares. How many?
I originally did 25 squares plus a name square, so there's 26 squares. There's 40 names on there. There's 1,040 squares in that group.
These are all the letters from
And all divided.
all the names, so just it. And she has enough squares to do another quilt.
Wow.
And she hasn't even finished this one, because it's just the top.
So where were these ladies from?
All over.
Where were these ladies from?
Well, this lady from Pennsylvania.
World Wide Web.
Oh,
So that was,
yeah.
and
We have
all that squares, so that's where they were all there. All that. World, all around. They're all
Okay.
Pennsylvania, Michigan. They wrote their name, they used fabric, marker. They wrote their name and, where they were and then a year. So we got Colorado, we got Texas. She belonged to, a book group, back when Yahoo groups were a thing. When my mom first got into the computer, she joined this book group called the Cyber Bees. And they were quilters from like all over. There were even some people from out of the country, but it was mostly people.
Yeah, there were a few.
Yes. And they would do these different swaps and things like that. And then they decided a lot of people were doing this around the year 2000. And my nephew was born in 2000, so mom was like, I was supposed to be Zachary. So we better finish it because he's freaking 25. It's like he'll be 25 next year. Maybe you should finish it for his 20th birthday. So, yeah, you just pick whatever fabric you had. So it was kind of like people would like de-stash with it and just cut, 25 2-inch squares, and then you just yeah. So that's all I have. If anybody else has any questions or comments or, okay. This is